It is no news that shelter is one of the basic needs of man. But when affordability of meeting that demand becomes a challenge, eyes will then be fixed on the law to protect the rights of citizens in all ramifications. The growing demand on housing needs and the rising cost of affording a decent home continues to dominate conversations. On the flip side, landlords are making huge demands from tenants by seeking arbitrary increase in rent payments, which they say might not be unconnected with the high cost of building materials and inflationary trends. Following recent developments, a bill in the House of Representatives which seeks to propose a 20% cap on rent increases was debated on. The goal is to shield tenants from excessive rent hikes and unfair eviction practices, increase transparency in the real estate sector through agent regulation, while promoting fairness and reduce inequality in the housing market. Now, if passed into law, landlords who violate this rule could face penalties, while tenants would enjoy a more stable housing market. Could that be a win-win situation? However, some experts are of the opinion that affordable housing is not just an economic necessity, but also a matter of social justice, and there must be concrete steps to protect the rights of citizens. For the federal government, prioritizing the development of low-cost housing estates for civil servants is part of its agenda. So tonight, we'll take a look at the rent debate, balancing the tenant's burden and the landlord's rights. And our guest is Mr. Bala Mohammed Yusuf. He's the Director, Legal Services, Federal Ministry of Housing and Urban Development. We'll bring you situation reports, of course, from across the country. In the meantime, thank you for joining us. Welcome. This is Weekend File. I'm Ruth Aguele. First, we begin with the news. The federal government has dismissed the recent U.S. report on religious freedom in Nigeria, reframing the nation's security challenges as part of a broader regional struggle against violent extremism. In a statement, Kimebi Ebienfa, spokesman of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, stated that this instability is fueled by special interests across West Africa and the Sahel. The government reaffirmed its commitment to defending all citizens, regardless of creed or religion. The statement praised the efforts of the armed forces and expressed solidarity with victims of violence. He also highlighted Nigeria's identity as a diverse and God-fearing nation that values tolerance and inclusion. Like America, Nigeria has no option but to celebrate the diversity as our greatest strength. Despite the disagreement on the report's assessment, the statement affirmed Nigeria's alliance with the United States and expressed desire to continue partnering in the pursuit of peace, freedom, and democracy. In other news, the presidential executive order on local manufacturing of healthcare products has attracted investor interest in Nigeria's local manufacturing industry. Coordinating Minister of Health and Social Welfare, Professor Mohammed Ali Pati, stated this during a visit to the corporate headquarters of Plus Life Diagnostics in China. Professor Pati noted that the presidential removal of tariffs and excise duties on pharmaceutical machinery, equipment, goods, and accessories, in addition to enhanced regulatory harmonization and speedy approval processes, are some of the key factors attracting new investments in localized healthcare manufacturing.
The value chain for diagnostics overall will be enhanced because the point of care testing will be available, and it will demonstrate not only to local industries in Nigeria, but to others from faraway places like here in Guangzhou and other parts of the world can come and have a viable market where they can manufacture and thrive. The executive order that the President signed allows us to provide incentives when it comes to importing not only raw materials but also equipment. And we're already seeing many industrial partners and players benefiting from that executive order.
In a renewed effort to boost school attendance and enhance learning outcomes, the federal government has launched a pilot breakfast scheme under its homegrown school feeding program. The initiative targets primary school pupils with Kano State among the first to benefit. Aminu Umar reports.
A homegrown school feeding program, a federal government initiative, provided daily nutritious meals to pupils in public schools across the country. A strategy designed to enhance learning outcomes and boost school enrollment. Building on its success, the federal government has launched a pilot breakfast scheme tagged Snacks for Thought.
Evidence from across the world has shown that school feed is not only nutrition, but also enrollment, attendance, and cognitive performance.
Even though it's a national program, but we are selling the ideas to developing partners, to state governors, to come and put together their private sector for the social, corporate social responsibility of their private sector.
Governor Abba Kabir Yusuf, represented at the event, said the initiative aligns with Kano State's education policy and reaffirmed the government's commitment to ensuring its success.
We will work closely with all stakeholders to ensure transparency, accountability, and sustainability to achieve the desired objective of the program.
The Ministry of Education remains deeply committed to every effort that improves access, quality of education, and pupils' retention in school.
For the pilot phase, primary schools in 4 local government areas of Kano State have been selected to benefit from the new breakfast scheme. In Kano, Amin Umar, NTA News.
A bit of politics now. Stakeholders of the All Progressives Congress in Zamfara State have endorsed President Bola Ahmed Tinubu for second term, come 2027. This forms part of the major resolutions of the stakeholders meeting presided over by former Zamfara State Governor and now Senator representing the State West Senatorial District, Senator Abdulaziz Yari Abubakar. Jamilu Ibrahim reports.
The Progressives Congress stakeholders meeting in Zamfara State presided over by Senator Abdulaziz Yari Abubakar and held in Mafara, headquarters of the latter Mafara local government area. The new executives of the party from the state, local government and the ward levels. Also in attendance are serving and former National and State Assembly members, former deputy governors and former local government councils chairmen elected on the APC platform, among other party faithfuls in the state. Passing the vote of confidence on the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's administration and the subsequent unanimous endorsement of his re-election come 2027 topped the agenda of the meeting. The National Assembly member representing Zamfara North Senatorial District, Senator Sahabi Alhaji moved the motion to that effect and was seconded by the member representing Bungudu Maru Federal Constituency, Abdul Malik Zubairu. The motion was later put to a voice vote for the stakeholders. Senator Yari and some other APC stalwarts who spoke at the event said the decision to endorse President Tinubu for second term is born out of the successes recorded by his administration within the past 2 years, which have restored the confidence of many Nigerians in the political leadership of the country.
So the way Bola Ahmed Tinubu put policy in place, put to come down, that is how we are, inshallah, give him the support to put the policy in place where fertilizer will become affordable for the farmers next season, inshallah.
The APC leaders also emphasized the importance of unity among the party faithfuls, as they want them against any form of divisive tendencies ahead of the 2027 general election to avoid reoccurrence of the 2019 bitter experience. Meanwhile, the former Zamfara State Governor and now Minister of State for Defense, Bello Muhammad Matoli, who is currently in Saudi Arabia for Lisa Hajj, also joined the meeting virtually. In Gusau, Jamilu Ibrahim, NTA.
The National Working Committee of the People's Democratic Party has suspended its national legal advisors, secretary and organizing secretary for 1 month for alleged anti-party activities. Timothy Yusuf reports that this development was after an emergency National Working Committee meeting following a court ruling that halted the party's planned national convention. The party's suspended National Secretary, Senator Samuel Anyanwu, however, convened another National Working Committee meeting, suspending PDP National Chairman, Ambassador Umar Damagum, and 5 other national officers.
Also, he will abreast you of all the things we have discussed.
The Emergency National Working Committee meeting held at the party's Legacy House in Abuja lasted several hours. Addressing the media, the PDP National Publicity Secretary, Debo Ologunagba, said the NWC, in line with the party's constitution, came to the conclusion to suspend the National Legal Advisor, Kamaldeen Ajibade SAN, Deputy National Legal Advisor, Okechukwu Soha, National Secretary, Senator Samuel Anyanwu, and National Organizing Secretary, Captain Umar Bature, for 1 month, and referred them to the PDP Disciplinary Committee, having reviewed the party's activities, especially in the recent past.
In the case of the National Secretary, pursuant to Section 36(2) of the Constitution, as amended in 2017, the Deputy National Secretary, Honorable Architect Sotendo Sitonji Koshedo, shall act as the National Secretary. And in the case of the Legal Advisor, the National Legal Advisor, and the Deputy Legal Advisor, the National Director of Legal Services has been empowered and directed to oversee the activity of the department during the period of suspension.
In another 10, the suspended PDP officers have reacted at another factional NWC meeting held in Abuja.
After an emergency meeting, we decided as a party to suspend Ambassador Elia Umadamagu, the national chairman of the party, for incompetence, misappropriation of party funds, and disobedience, flagrant disobedience of court judgments. Secondly, we have looked at the activities of the National Public Secretary, Honorable Debo Ologunagba. For us to have sanity in the party, we must give him that suspension. Thirdly, we have looked at Ambassador Arakwaja, who also has joined as the Deputy National Chairman South, who is supposed to have advised the National Chairman, connived in such anti-party activities.
The factional NWC members announced that the National Vice Chairman North Central, Mohammed Abdul Rahman, take over the affairs of the party as acting National Chairman. Timothy Yusuf, NTA News.
In other news, Corps Marshal Federal Road Safety Corps Shehu Mohammed says the Corps will not condone any act of bribery and corruption or other nefarious activities from officers and men of the Corps, as the integrity of the Corps remains paramount. He said this while reacting to the arrest of 6 officers of the Corps who were engaged in bribery. Oyeyemi Ajayi reports.
The Special Intelligence Squad of the Corps Marshal of Federal Road Safety Corps had on Saturday, 1st of November 2025, apprehended 2 teams from Gwagwalada and Abaji Unit Commands, respectively. A total of 39,600 naira were found with them, money said to have been extorted from the motoring public. The Abaji Unit Command was said to be using point-of-sale operator to collect monies from motorists.
From the military checkpoint, along with this bag, immediately we alerted from our vehicle. He threw this into a ditch where rice was planted. We videoed it, we recovered it. Unknown to them, we have deployed a drone. It has recorded everything they were doing.
The FRSC Corps Marshal Shehu Mohammed maintained that these personnel, according to the Corps regulations, will be dismissed from the service after completion of investigation process. He, however, cautioned the public against bribing FRSC officers while encouraging motorists to ensure they get the names on the chest plate and report any personnel demanding money from them through its mobile app and toll-free line 112 or the FRSC radio. Oyeyemi Ajayi, NTA News.
To keep its regular annual financial year, Gombe State Government has started the 2026 budget process. Emmanuel Akila reports on the preliminary aspects, which involves getting the people to make their inputs.
The process of getting input from representatives of the people is what the government calls Stakeholders Consultative Meeting on the Budget Preparation.
Good governance must be participatory, must be inclusive, it must be relevant and responsive to the desires and the yearnings of the people.
No budget will be prepared in the state without the input of the citizens of the state. That is the reason why we started this 6 years ago. You will discover that after this engagement, the contents reflect the aspirations, the desires, and the needs of the people of Gombe.
The annual budget process in Gombe State begins with the citizens' consultative meeting. And the most important thing is, how much has this been paid off in delivering dividends of democracy as the citizens expect?
Last year, the aspiration of the citizens was captured in the budget, about 54%, while this year, the present budget, 2025 budget, citizens' aspiration is about 64%.
I remember through this process some years ago, I presented a motion on a need to establish the industrial park, which His Excellency was able to bring it on board and bring it to light.
When the suggestions from the various groups, civil society organizations and the traditional institution are collated, the draft budget document goes to the stage of legislative scrutiny. In Gombe, Emmanuel Akila, NTA News.
Coming up, the rent debate, balancing the tenant's burden and the landlord's right. What do you think? Why are you Thank you for staying tuned. The cost of living continues to soar across Nigeria, while access to affordable housing remains a growing challenge for millions in Abuja and other major cities. Skyrocketing rents and arbitrary eviction notices are leaving many residents uncertain about having a shelter over their heads. Well, Charles Alpha examines global housing models that Nigeria can adopt to ensure fairer and more affordable living conditions.
Easy. It has not been easy, especially for hustling people like me.
Many Nigerians, including civil servants and low-income earners, have been forced to relocate to the suburbs or even neighboring states in search of cheaper accommodation. Rents for a one-bedroom apartment in Abuja and other major cities are said to reach as high as 3 million naira, excluding additional costs such as legal, agency, and caution fees. From my interaction with some tenants in the city center, rents have become unbearable in the last 3 years. House owners, on the other hand, attribute the sharp rise in rent to the present economic realities.
Land is very expensive. One length of road now is about 20,000 naira. One pillar will take 4 lengths.
By law, a landlord must serve notice before evicting a tenant. 7 days for a weekly tenancy, 1 month for a monthly tenancy, and 6 months for a yearly tenancy. But in practice, tenants say these provisions are often ignored.
He told us he was going to sell, but like within a month he sold the property, and the new landlord is asking us to evacuate. He's giving us 1 week to move out.
The national and state assemblies have at various times expressed concerns over this trend, calling for policies that protect both landlords and tenants in a fair and transparent manner.
We need to rise and direct authorities of government to put a control. The highest percentage of increment that we should think of for any time that we want to increase should not be anything above 20%.
Experts recommend that Nigeria adopts a stronger rent regulation through accessible housing finance. Charles Alpha, NTA News.
Now, the rising costs of rent and growing tension between landlords and tenants have once again brought the state's tenancy law into sharp focus. I'm talking about Lagos. The law, first enacted in 2011, seeks to promote fairness in the rental market, but enforcement remains a challenge. Awal Yusuf Jibo reports.
For many residents, finding and keeping a home in Lagos is becoming a battle for survival. Some tenants say their landlords now demand 2 or even 3 years' rent in advance, while others speak of sudden evictions without notice. The Lagos State Tenancy Law, enacted in 2011, seeks to address such grievances. But the question remains, how many Lagosians even know it exists? Bolu Atife Shitu is a teacher. She says with what she earns and the current cost of rent, she fears that someday she might wake up homeless.
You know, when you are paying a rent of like maybe 250K and before you know it, you're busy with 150,000, that's 400,000, you know, it's too much.
Those agency fees, something like that, I beg, may they help us find solution for this to say some place. It's not easy.
There has to be a lot of engagement between the legislature and the judiciary to ensure that the procedure for resolution of tenancy-related issues are as smooth as possible, and they encourage investment in real estate in Lagos.
On the flip side, developers and landlords say recovering their investments is not as simple as it sounds. They decry the high cost of construction, property maintenance, and managing tenants under the current economic realities.
You don't do a plan again, and that's because you can't plan some of these construction costs. You know, Iron Rod at the time was 225,000 naira per ton. It moved to 525,000, 750,000. Iron Rod, as I'm talking to you right now, TMT is 1.2 million naira per metric ton.
As Lagos lawmakers push for stricter enforcement of the tenancy law, both landlords and tenants are being reminded that understanding their rights and responsibilities remains the first step toward a fairer and more stable housing system. In Lagos, Awol Yusuf Jubo, NTA News.
All right, let's bring in our guests. Mr. Bala Mohammed Yusuf, he's the Director, Legal Services, Federal Ministry of Housing and Urban Development. Mr. Yusuf, thank you for joining us on Weekend File.
Thank you very much, and I'm glad to be here with you.
Fantastic. We're glad to have you here. I'm sure you've seen the reports you've had from the tenants and also the perspective of the landlord. Now, what is the ministry's stance? Because there are a lot of issues on ground, especially affordability, accessibility to information that could be readily available to citizens. What's your take?
Yes, thank you very much. We all know that the issue of this inflation affects every aspect of our life, but the most disturbing among them is the inflation that affects shelter and food, because shelter and food are indispensable to life. So that's why the federal government, especially the Federal Ministry of Housing and Urban Development, comes up with so many initiatives to provide, to increase the supply of housing, to make it more accessible and more affordable by the Renewed Hope housing projects all over the country. So that is what, and then the establishment of building materials hub in all the regions of the federation to reduce the cost of construction of houses. So.
Go ahead, sir. I thought you were done with your thoughts.
Yes. So that is exactly the aspect from which the Federal Ministry of Housing is trying to address the housing deficit in the country by increasing the supply. Because all this we are talking about is brought about by the forces of demand and supply. The supply is limited, the demand is higher, in all, especially in the major cities of the country. And that is what the Federal Ministry of Housing is trying to do, to address the paucity of, the deficit housing delivery to the citizenry.
Okay, Mr. Yusuf, from what you're saying, of course, we know the ongoing Renewed Hope cities and estates with a target of 10,000, homes for citizens. But accessibility to these homes is the question here. And with the issue going on the arbitrary, eviction of, tenants, and also the skyrocketing increase in rent, that's the debate. Gladly, we've seen the legislative inputs of 20% cap, for any increment, which Nigerians are hoping, that will scale through. We don't know what the ministry make out of these whole circumstances, while citizens await the completion of some of these estates, which are still ongoing construction process, I want to believe.
Yes,
okay.
Any discourse, the Federal Ministry of Housing is a critical stakeholder in every discourse about housing delivery. And this issue of tenant and the landlord is of great concern to us, because so many states have come up with laws. Unfortunately, the laws were not strictly enforced, and that really makes it somehow inefficacious. So the Federal Minister of Housing is really in support of the current move to come up with a robust legal regime to address the crisis, between the tenants and the landlords, bearing in mind that rights and duties are complementary. The tenants has rights, but then there are duties they also have to perform. And we all understand that they are all affected by the landlords also consider the cost of construction, the cost of financing. Some of them go through the mortgage before they can source for finance to be able to construct these houses. So the Federal Minister of Housing is coming with the idea of, first of all, trying to increase the production of mass housing production. Then to come up with a possible incentive to incentivize the production of houses, to be able to soften the condition for the landlord to be able to build more houses, and at least to minimize the housing deficit, and to enable the tenants to be able to access all these houses, to own houses. When you construct houses, and the Nigerians are able to own houses, it will reduce the number of tenants also, because the most important thing is for the people to own their own houses. And that is what the Federal Minister of Housing is doing by constructing houses for middle income earners and low income earners at an affordable price. Recently, you must have heard about the coming of the approval by the federal government for a uniform price, which is very affordable to the citizenry. So that is actually what the Federal Minister of Housing is trying to do. First of all, to increase the number of houses for the citizenry to own dwelling houses.
You know, it's good you kept hammering on the word affordability, which is very important, because it's one thing to have these houses there and not being able to qualify to afford it. So let's take a break, Mr. Yusuf. We'll be right back. Thank you for staying tuned. Kano is facing a growing housing crisis as rising population and economic pressures push rent prices higher, leaving many residents struggling to secure affordable accommodations. Well, legal experts are now calling on the state government to review and update the nearly 3-decade-old Kano State tenancy laws to better protect both tenants and landlords. Awal Salisu reports.
Kano continues to experience housing challenge due to its rising population and economic pressures. The increased demand for accommodation, coupled with inflation and high construction costs, is pushing rent higher and straining both tenants and landlords. Many residents struggle to afford rent, while landlords face difficulties in maintaining properties.
The landlord frequently takes tenants to court because they often fail to pay rent on time due to low income, leading to ongoing disputes.
Legal experts Lawan is urging the Kano State government and House of Assembly to review the outdated 1998 tenancy law.
The law is before the House of Assembly, although it has been amended once during the administration of Al Ibrahim Shekaru. Something has been done with regards to increment, so that whenever landlords are going to increase their rent, first of all, it has to be notified and it has to be reasonable.
Lawan stressed that updated tenancy laws could help ease tensions and provide lasting solutions to Kano's deepening housing crisis. He emphasized the need for clear guidelines on rent control, eviction, and tenant-landlord's rights to ensure fairness in the housing sector. In Kano, Awal Salisu, NTA News.
And Rivers State is not left out, as residents there are faced with lack of affordable houses, overpopulation, as well as increase in rural urban migration, which has been identified as some of the factors. Let's hear from Emmanuel Lene.
The rising cost of living, inflation, and dwindling disposable income. Many landlords in Port Harcourt have arbitrarily continued to increase their house rents. In recent times, A one-bedroom flat that in the past cost between 300 to 400,000 naira has suddenly skyrocketed to about 1.2 million naira, while two-bedroom flats now cost between 2.5 million naira to 4.5 million naira, depending on the landlord, location, and state of facilities. The reason for this, as adduced by the house owners whose houses, in most cases, were built over 10 to 20 years ago, is what is most baffling, as they keep blaming the sharp increases on increase in cost of building materials. However, housing experts blame the situation on several other factors.
There are no mortgage banks that are working and helping the industry. Most commercial banks don't lend to real estate. There is no government incentive for development. So the few developers that go into it hit one or two challenges.
There have been houses deficit over the years because as we are growing towards about 7 million people or more than that in Rivers State, the houses have not been so adequate.
Although attempts have been made by the Rivers State House of Assembly to regulate house rents through legislation without any positive result yet, many see this as counterproductive and a trend that could discourage potential investors.
Because there is a government control or price control legally, it will just give birth to a black market system that makes it even worse.
As residents continue to grapple with the situation, many believe that proactive measures in public-private partnership in the housing sector can ameliorate the plight of the people.
If you increase the number of landlords will start begging the tenants by making incentive in housing very high.
The people are also proposing the need for government at various levels to declare a state of emergency in the housing sector to address some of the concerns raised. In Port Harcourt, Emmanuel Lene, NTA News.
Okay, Mr. Yusuf, I saw your reaction, watching those reports. I want to take us back to the Kanu on implementation of these laws, which experts are saying, will go a long way in easing the burden. What is the ministry doing, or what strategies are they adopting to ensure states, adopt these laws and domesticate them?
Thank you very much. The Federal Ministry of Housing is a federal, as the name suggests, is a federal agency. And under the Land Use Act, sections 1, 2, and 5, the control of land is vested in the state governors. So, and then the state governors also are empowered to administer this land for the common benefit of the people of that state. So, and the issue of tenancy, regulating rent or tenancy, is vested in the states. The regulating tenancy in the Federal Capital Territory is vested in the Federal Capital Territory Administration by virtue of Section 4, subsection 7 of the Constitution, which provides that the Federal Capital Territory is to be regarded as a state, as one of the states of the Federation. And they are empowered to make laws on issues that do not fall within the exclusive legislative list. The issue of tenancy does not fall within either the exclusive legislative list or concurrent. So it is within the residuary powers of the FCT. And that power is exercisable by the National Assembly. Because National Assembly is like the State House of Assembly of the FCT. So that's why the current bill is before the National Assembly. So the Federal Ministry of Housing has very little influence over that, and whatever it is going to be persuasive, not coercive to the states. So that's the problem. Actually, every state has to come up with their own robust legal framework to ensure that the rights of tenants and that of the landlords are protected. And the tenants should know that, and the landlord also should know that rights and duties are complementary. For you to enjoy one right, you have to perform certain duties.
You said that before, Mr.
Yes.
Yusuf.
Yes.
Now, which brings us back to the Renewed Hope Housing Estates, more like a low-hanging fruit for some who have not been able to get a hold of it. What hope are you giving Nigerians? And how many, I'm not saying you should give us statistics of the number of beneficiaries, but where is the hope, for civil servants and even people who are not civil servants to get a hold of this housing?
Well, there is this National Housing Fund under the Federal Mortgage Bank. So the Federal Ministry of Housing is trying to bring out an effective mortgage arrangement that will enable low-income earners to be able to buy these houses through the Federal Mortgage Bank. So they will finance, and then the Federal Ministry of Housing, like I said before, is committed to massive production of houses, and to at least to make it available for low and the middle income earners. So that is exactly what the Federal Ministry of Housing, and I assure you, depending on the budgetary disposal, the ministry is poised to deliver on that.
You know why I asked that question, Mr. Yusuf, is because when you look at the commitment because I know it's a collaboration, it's not fully funded by the ministry.
Yes.
So when you look at the other aspect, what citizens are expected to pay, is it friendly? Maybe I should be direct.
Well, it is considering the current realities.
Okay.
It is friendly. And that's why one of the things also is that the Federal Ministry of Housing is going into partnership with the private sector, because even though housing is one of the fundamental objective of governance under the Constitution, Chapter 2, under the fundamental objective and directive principles of state policies. So it's one of the social objectives of governance. So definitely the Federal Ministry of Housing is trying to do its best. First of all, it will maybe go into an arrangement with other relevant government agencies to incentivize, like I said before, to make the cost of production at least within the barest minimum to enable low-income and middle-income earners to afford housing.
Okay. Let's leave the conversation there, but of course not the issue, because of course you're aware to continue to dominate conversations, but we'll put our eyes on the prize. Thank you very much, Mr. Bala Mohammed Yusuf. Thank you for coming on Weekend File.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you.
So let's take a break. We'll be back shortly. Stay tuned. Thank you for staying with us. Let's bring you a global update.
Talks on the sidelines of the APEC gathering came on the final day of Xi's first trip to South Korea in more than a decade. Trump flew to South Korea for the summit, but promptly jetted home on Thursday after sealing a trade war pause with Xi. His departure left the Chinese leader to take center stage at the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit, where he framed Beijing as a responsible power against the chaos unleashed by the United States on the international order. Li welcomed Xi at a grand opening ceremony, complete with soldiers wearing traditional garb. The visit was the Chinese leader's first since 2014 and comes after years of strained ties over everything from trade to cultural dispute. Li noted that the two countries move from a vertical structure of economic cooperation to a more horizontal and mutual beneficial one. Report says Xi told Li that the two countries should respect each other's societal differences and development paths and resolve contradictions and disagreements through friendly consultation. Meanwhile, Tangier, located in the far north of Morocco, came to life following the latest resolution of the UN Security Council recognizing Morocco's claim of Western Sahara's autonomy as the most realistic framework for resolving the Western Sahara dispute between Morocco and the Polisario Front. Francis Udojo, NT News.
And next will be sports update. Before we go, tomorrow, November 2nd, is International Day to End Impunity for Crimes Against Journalists. The United Nations General Assembly proclaimed the day to remind member states to implement definite measures countering the present culture of impunity. Now, this landmark resolution condemns all attacks and violence against journalists and media workers. It also urges member states to do their utmost to prevent violence against journalists and media workers, to ensure accountability, bring to justice perpetrators of crimes against journalists and media workers, and ensure that victims have access to appropriate remedies. It further calls upon states to promote a safe and enabling environment for journalists to perform their work independently and without undue interference. So, always remember, we're friends, right? So stop the confrontation and embrace collaboration. Press freedom must thrive. And that's Weekend File. I'm Ruth Aguwele. Good night.